Welcome, everyone, to a brand new explainer. Today, we're looking at something that has absolutely captured the attention of the sports world. We are talking about the 2026 United States Men's National Team World Cup campaign.
Oh, I am so incredibly excited to jump into this because, let's be real, this has been a wild tournament ride so far. We've got record-breaking crowds, some really fascinating tactical shifts, and a team that is navigating the immense, heavy pressure of playing a World Cup right here on home soil. We're going to provide a comprehensive breakdown of everything that's unfolded on the pitch, from their total group stage dominance to the strategic gambles that have set up an incredible knockout bracket.
Okay, so let's quickly lay out our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll look at the Pochettino tactical blueprint, then group stage dominance. Skipping ahead a bit, we'll also touch on the historic coaching context to see how this all stacks up.
And I have to jump in here because I am so ready to tease the match recaps, specifically the Turkey setback and grading the player performances. Plus, of course, wrapping up with the knockout stage path because the bracket is officially set and it is juicy.
But first, you just have to look at this staggering number, 3,605,357. That is the record-breaking World Cup attendance figure that has already been shattered at this 2026 tournament. And guys, the knockout rounds haven't even really started yet. The crowds are just massive. We're talking about filling sprawling, colossal venues like AT&T Stadium and MetLife Stadium to the absolute brim. The stadiums are operating at 99.7% capacity. The energy is quite literally off the charts.
Exactly. And we really need to translate what that immense home soil pressure means for the American squad. Playing in front of the largest crowds in the history of the sport brings a very unique kind of weight. It's an expanded 48-team bracket now, sure, but for the players actually wearing that U.S. crest, every single touch, every pass, every tactical decision is happening under an absolute microscope. It's an incredible motivator, for sure, but there is zero room to hide when the entire country is watching your every move.
So that brings us to Section 1, the Pochettino tactical blueprint. To handle that kind of pressure, you need a manager with a clear, uncompromising identity.
Exactly. What makes his manager system so uniquely aggressive? Let's get into how he structurally makes it happen.
Oh, I love talking about this. Let's break down what is being called the Paraguay Pentagon. The actual mechanics of this shape are just brilliant. Pochettino essentially commits 5, and honestly sometimes even 6, players high up the pitch into these really dangerous zones. Weston McKennie pushes incredibly high to drag defenders with him. And the moment he does that, Malik Tillman immediately drifts into the empty pocket of space that McKennie just vacated. It's this beautiful cascading effect that forces the opposing defense to make impossible choices.
Yes, and this brilliantly illustrates how they create a repeatable numerical advantage. Because while the center of the opponent's defense is frantically trying to deal with McKennie and Tillman, Sergiño Dest and Christian Pulisic are lurking way out wide. The U.S. just sprays the ball out to them, leaving those wide defenders completely isolated in one-on-one situations. It totally overwhelms the opponent. No matter where the defense shifts, the USMNT has an extra man ready to exploit the open space. The defense gets stretched vertically by McKennie and then horizontally by Dest and Pulisic. It's just relentless.
And that relentless pressure perfectly sets up what Paraguay's coach, Gustavo Alfaro, admitted right after their match. He said, they're a team that presents many challenges because they have answers for every problem. I mean, that is huge praise. He basically conceded that his teams simply could not match up tactically. There was nothing they could do.
Absolutely. To build on that, the underlying data proves just how suffocating this system is. In that 4-1 victory over Paraguay, the U.S. held 65% possession. And it wasn't just them idly passing around the back. They completed 277 passes in Paraguay's half compared to just 68 for Paraguay. They took 53 touches inside the opponent's penalty box. The moment the U.S. lost the ball, they had 7 players swarming like a hive of bees to win it right back. They essentially choked Paraguay out of the game, which proves Alfaro's point entirely.
Moving on to Section 2, group stage dominance. Because look, theory is great on paper, but executing it flawlessly on the world's biggest stage is a completely different animal.
Right. Let's look at how they actually adapted and executed in those first 2 critical victories.
So comparing the 2 games, the 4-1 win over Paraguay was all about that midfield numerical advantage and wide isolation we literally just talked about. But then, heading into the Australia match, Christian Pulisic was out with an injury. Instead of forcing a like-for-like replacement and stubbornly sticking to the exact same script, Pochettino brilliantly adapted. He started 2 strikers, Ricardo Pepi alongside Fuller and Balogun. It's a total masterclass in reading your opponent's weaknesses.
It really is, and it's incredible how well that worked against Australia's physical five-man backline. By putting two highly dangerous strikers right up the middle, the U.S. completely occupied Australia's center backs. That forced the Australian wingbacks to deal with the U.S. wide players completely on their own, with no help. It pinned the Australian defense so far back that they couldn't even launch their trademark counterattacks. It highlights such amazing tactical flexibility to just casually change the entire point of attack like that and still cruise to a 2-0 win.
So heading into the final group match, the U.S. was sitting perfectly at the top of the standings. 2 matches played, 2 wins, 6 points, and a +5 goal differential. They had definitively locked up the group early. Literally no one could catch them because they held the head-to-head tiebreakers over the only teams that could theoretically even match their points.
Right, and the crucial takeaway here is that this total dominance afforded the coaching staff a really rare luxury in a World Cup: breathing room. Because first place was entirely secured, it introduced a scenario where the priorities suddenly shifted from winning at all costs to pure asset management. And that ensuing shift meant massive lineup changes were coming for the final group stage match against Turkey.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Turkey setback. Look, a 3-2 loss is always tough to swallow, but the context around this loss is vital.
Exactly. This match meant completely different things to the two teams stepping onto the pitch.
And yet, the atmosphere in the stadium absolutely did not reflect a low-stakes game. It was a raucous, sellout crowd at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. The energy in the building was palpable, and the audience was incredibly star-studded. We're talking high-profile figures from politics and entertainment, everyone from Second Lady Usha Vance and Vice President Kamala Harris, right alongside celebrities like Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, and Will Ferrell. The crowd was absolutely electric.
But on the pitch, the reality was quite a bit different. The U.S. fielded 9 new starters. It was a very chippy, highly physical game, with Turkey fighting incredibly hard for their pride. And ultimately it ended with a heartbreaking 98th-minute stoppage-time goal by Turkey. The B team really struggled to maintain the fluid dominance we saw from the starting 11 in those first 2 matches.
Now, following the match, Pochettino was slightly defensive when questioned by the press. He stated, "We won first place in this group. We did want the victory, but there are other things we needed to balance out." He was very firm that they had other priorities beyond just winning a low-stakes game. And honestly, I have to agree with his approach here. Resting key players who were carrying yellow cards was a frustrating but completely necessary risk. In a World Cup, accumulation of yellow cards can lead to a suspension in the knockout rounds. You simply cannot risk losing your star players in a meaningless game when you have a massive round of 32 matchup looming. It wasn't pretty, no, but it was absolutely the smart strategic play for the long run. Section 4, grading the player performances. Because these minutes are crucial for evaluating the depth of the squad.
Exactly. This is where we really get to see the separation between the core roster and the depth pieces under pressure.
Starting with the bright spots, we have to passionately praise Sebastian Berhalter. He was the team's most progressive passer by far, scoring a brilliant goal from the edge of the area and providing an assist. And that assist went to Austin Trusty, who headed home a fantastic set-piece goal. Their set-piece prowess was a really huge positive takeaway from this match.
It was, but on a flip side, we do have to gently point out the struggles. Goalkeeper Matt Turner allowed 3 goals on the 3 shots he faced, which is definitely a concern. In an elimination game, you simply can't afford to be pulling the ball out of your own net 3 times on 3 shots. And Joe Scally struggled with severe defensive lapses and positional issues. He got pulled out of position on a couple of Turkey's goals, including that late-game winner. These are defensive vulnerabilities you absolutely cannot afford once knockout games start.
And looking at the broader key developments from that match, the biggest sigh of relief was Christian Pulisic returning in the 58th minute. He hadn't played since his calf injury in the opener, but he looked incredibly dynamic, creating chances immediately and nearly scoring himself. Having your star player back to full fitness is just massive. It is, but I'm definitely worrying aloud about that second point. Austin Trusty exiting with an apparent left ankle injury is really tough news. Losing a key defender right before the knockouts begin puts a real dent in their depth. And we also have to mention Brendan Aronson missing an unobstructed open net opportunity. In knockout football, you don't get many chances like that, and you simply have to finish them when they arrive.
Section 5, historic coaching context. Let's zoom out for a second. How does this current tactical era actually stack up against previous managers in USMNT history?
Well, to really understand that, we need to look at the numbers.
The data lays it out perfectly. Mauricio Pochettino is already operating at a historically elite win rate of 67.86%. He is right up there neck and neck with Greg Berhalter at 68.24% and the legendary Bruce Arena at 66.55%. The current manager has wasted absolutely zero time establishing a winning culture.
We definitely have to contextualize those numbers, though. Bruce Arena managed a massive sample size of 148 matches, and Berhalter managed 74. They had cycles spanning multiple World Cups to cement their numbers. Pochettino has achieved his near 68% win rate across his first 28 matches. So while the sample size is definitely smaller, achieving that kind of elite win percentage this quickly while implementing a brand new, highly aggressive system, it's remarkably impressive.
And to further underscore just how impressive that is, take a look at this number. 54.76%. That is the all-time historical win percentage for the USMNT since its inception over a century ago. So the team is currently operating nearly 15 percentage points higher than their historical average. It really highlights how effective these recent aggressive tactics have been in reshaping the entire historical trajectory of the program. That data makes me highly optimistic, honestly. When you see a team playing that far above their historical baseline, it proves that this isn't just a lucky streak. The underlying tactical blueprint is clearly working, and it's yielding results that rival the absolute best eras in American soccer history. Finally, Section 6, the knockout stage path. This is the fun part. By winning their group so decisively, the team earned a highly favorable route.
Exactly. Winning the group was all about positioning. It was about giving themselves the absolute best possible chance to make a deep run.
Let's walk through this knockout timeline. The schedule is heavily concentrated on the West Coast. They kick off the round of 32 on July 1st in Santa Clara. If they win, they head up to Seattle for the round of 16. A victory there brings them right back down to Inglewood for the quarterfinals. It's not until the semifinals in Texas or the final in East Rutherford, New Jersey, that they really have to leave the West Coast.
And I have to point out how crucial that is. Staying in California and Washington severely limits travel fatigue for the squad. Remember, their base camp is in Irvine, California, so while other teams are flying cross-country dealing with completely different time zones and climates, the U.S. gets to stay in their comfort zone. That reduction in physical wear and tear is a massive hidden advantage in a grueling, month-long tournament.
Now, let's break down the specific on-field matchups step by step. Step 1 is the round of 32 against Bosnia and Herzegovina. If they handle business there, Step 2 is a potential round of 16 clash against Belgium, a team still leaning heavily on the aging remnants of their golden generation. If they survive that, Step 3 is a looming, massive quarterfinal matchup against Spain. Oh man, I am genuinely so excited about that potential quarterfinal. Facing Spain, the European champions, at SoFi Stadium, that would be an absolute blockbuster. It would be the ultimate test of Pochettino's aggressive blueprint. A potential quarterfinal against Spain isn't just a game. It's a measuring stick for American soccer on the global stage. Can the Paraguay Pentagon outpossess and outpress the masters of possession themselves? That is the kind of matchup that defines a generation of soccer, for sure. But to get there, they have to survive knockout football. As defined here, this is a tournament phase where the loser is immediately eliminated. It demands peak tactical execution, mental resilience, and absolutely zero room for error. One bad defensive lapse, like we saw against Turkey, or one missed open net, and your World Cup dream is over in an instant. The stakes literally could not be higher.
Which makes you reflect on that Turkey game, right? Will that B-team stumble affect the core roster's momentum? The starters rested, which we established was smart, but you never want a loss hanging over the locker room going into an elimination game. They are going to need to immediately flip the switch back to that ruthless, suffocating style we saw in the first two games.
So, I leave you all with this final provocative question. With record-breaking crowds pushing them forward and an aggressive tactical blueprint that has proven it can overwhelm opponents, how far can this historic squad truly go? Are we looking at a team destined for a deep, historic run?
That is the multi-million-dollar question. They have the talent, they have the tactics, and they have the home field advantage of a lifetime. Now it's just about execution on the biggest stage. Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer of the USMNT's wild ride so far, and we will see you after the knockout rounds.